It's really hard to make TV in Australia.
Why's that?
Original TV is higher risk, so our format is called an original format. Most formats come from the States or they come from the UK.
Yeah, like a preset playbook.
It's a playbook, they've got the data on it, and that's why.
Tom Ormerod is the co-founder of Luxico, Australia's first home hotel, created to blend the privacy of luxury homes with five-star service. Since 2013, he's redefined what travel can be, building a brand trusted by elite guests worldwide.
We've decided to just go for a niche, and we think there's a gap there to build brand, but also to build personal brand as well.
You are Australia's premier luxury stays platform. Your target market is really the ultra rich that want to stay in Australia.
It's wealthy people, but also people that want to have a milestone. Yeah, we host people for both leisure and business reasons. We host celebrities, we host people doing films, all sorts of interesting reasons why people need to have a home away from home.
How is that affecting how short-term rental accommodation works for owners at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, the government.
What's life been like since it's dropped your premiere season of Billion Dollar Playground?
It's been a great experience, but it's been a long experience. It's taken 8 years to get that from concept to the screens.
I want to know what it's like working with these billionaires in real life.
It's a lot of fun. We've organised everything from them.
What's an example of a wild request?
We've brought in grand pianos, exotic animals, all sorts of things.
How did you get that over the line with Luxico being mentioned so well?
I mean, I think
Tom, welcome to Flow Zone.
Thanks very much, Mark. Happy to be here.
I've been busting to have this conversation with you. So when I caught up with you last time, it was when we had Adam Schwab there, Schwabby, Luxury Escapes, and you were interviewing him in a fireside chat in Entrepreneurs Organisation, and we were in South Yarra at the Bromley Gallery. And I was chatting to you just prior, and I'm like, what have you been up to? And you're like, oh yeah, my show on Binge is about to drop. And I'm like, what? You've got your own TV show on Binge? What's life been like since it's dropped? Your season, your premiere season of Billion Dollar Playground.
I can't say that people have been rushing up in the streets to have a selfie with me, but certainly there have been some funny situations. Someone came up to me in the gym and said, we love your show, but we think your wife's pretty scary. So, which I thought was pretty funny. But it's been a great experience, but it's been a long experience. It's taken really 8 years to get that from concept to the screen. So it's been quite a journey as such, but some really great learnings along the way, and probably wasn't what it began as some time ago. So it was an idea. It really came from an experience I had going overseas, auditioning for a show with Netflix to host it. I didn't get it, and we decided after that we might like to make our own show. So we went on a bit of a journey.
Wow. See, this is the thing that a lot of people don't get about this. They're like, oh, overnight success. Like now they're on a TV show and now it's all famous. So why did you go over to the States in the first place? Was that your pursuit, or what were you over there for?
I just got an email out of the blue, which was sort of said, would you like to audition for this show? This is what it's about. And I thought it was a scam. I thought it was some sort of crazy Nigerian scam. And I said, look, if you put me on a plane, I'll come over and I'll do it. And before I knew it, I'm underneath a Hollywood sign, auditioning for this show, which ultimately I didn't get. But I did come home thinking, is there a way for us to tell the message of Luxico and get this message out to a bigger audience? And really from there, I ended up talking to a number of producers in Australia and found Ben Davies via an EOA, and just had a great connection. He does Bondi Rescue. He's recently done Territory, Outback Riggers, and a whole lot of other successful shows. And it was really somebody I felt that we could trust. Because it's not easy, you're opening up the hood, showing what's, going on behind the scenes, which is pretty scary at times.
Oh, look, absolutely. Like to even use that word as trust in someone that's like a producer or a manager of talent of any kind, like they're not always words that go together unless there's been some kind of experience prior. So you mentioned that they had some other experience that might have helped you feel comfortable with that. Before we dive into that though, maybe we should just explain to the audience what Luxico is all about, because like you are Australia's premier luxury stays platform, as well as all the hosting and concierge services that go with it. And your target market is really the ultra rich that want to stay in Australia, if I've got that right.
Yeah, it's wealthy people, but also people that want to have a milestone birthday, people that are moving for work. It could be a CEO that's moving, back to Australia and needs a place for sort of 2 and 3 months. So yeah, we host people for both leisure and business reasons. We host celebrities, we host tennis players, we host people doing films, all sorts of interesting reasons why people need to have a home away from home.
Oh man, that just caught my attention there. And you said doing films. What's your knowledge of any salacious films that have been filmed on set? Has anything like that ever happened?
Well, I absolutely hope not.
Imagine that. Someone clicks on something,
that's,
and then that's my staircase or lounge.
My worst nightmare to ever see anything on OnlyFans. Not that I have a membership.
No doubt someone would send you one. No,
look, we're pretty careful, who goes into the homes, and because we're more than a platform. Quite often, you've got a concierge that is meeting that guest in many of the situations. We're getting to know those guests as well. So they haven't just stayed with us for just once in many occasions. We're about 30% repeat and referral. So we get to know these people, what their preferences are. We're doing lots more than just, facilitating that stay. It's getting things in the fridge. So we get to know them. So hopefully it mitigates that type of situation a bit.
Yeah, well, look, I can say with very positive feedback, I know at least one owner that has used your service, and you have been invited back to do it more than once. So this is a premier property. I know it's owned by an entrepreneur that I'm very close friends with, and it's in an elite suburb like Mossman in Sydney. We're talking, $30 million price tag. You can imagine the build standard. You can imagine how they like to live. And like they did say at first, like there was some stringent guidelines you guys had about how the property needed to be for the guests, like the amount of things that needed to kind of come out of it. And so they're feeling like they're kind of stepping into this fully furnished, almost brand new home. But once they got used to doing that, they were happy to do it again. And I'm sure it's okay to talk about the ballparks here. We're talking about sort of 16 to 20 grand per night for these properties. And like the guests seem happy to pay it. The owners are happy to go to the hassle of stepping out for however many nights that are booked. I'm curious, what's the highest price per night that you've had from a guest in recent times?
It would be over 20,000. And the house that you talked about, anything that's sort of on the harbour ends up being a pretty big number, sort of 10 to 20. But some of the homes we make available for, say, a photo shoot for the day, and that could be a big number. So some of the homes are pure investments, and some are people's primary homes, as you alluded to, where they are getting ready to go, and we need to make it worthwhile for that homeowner. They're wealthy anyway, they're busy, and that our business that sort of sits underneath Luxico takes care of that whole process, the property management process, to get them guest ready. Yeah.
Look, I'm really big on an integrated group of companies, right? And one of my lenses I've been looking through for the last sort of decade or more, because we're both from a property background, is what I call property concierge. Now, it's in our world, it's property concierge about any real estate need that someone that could be called a customer would have. So like a lot of people look at the customer as the one that's going to sign the agreement, whereas I look at the customer as the person who needs to interact with the service. And you're a little bit like that too. You've got the paying tenant that's really, paying rent to the owner, that you've got the client who's signing up. Then there's all these affiliated people around the process. And having looked through that lens over many years, I can see some really big gaps that exist, particularly in the sales industry in Australasia and the way that people rent like long stay rentals. I imagine there would have had to have been some gaps that you identified in this luxury end of the market. Like you already had the kind of property management company that was going to look after how to set the property up and then do the rentals. But to go big and build a platform like this, it's essentially international, and then have the other affiliated entities off the side of that we can get into. What gap did you see to say, we need to do something about this? We need to make a business out of this?
I think the pretty early on, we remember living down on the Mornington Peninsula and hearing stories about people picking up their keys from the fish and chip shop. These are luxury homes, and had an experience overseas where we were searching for keys underneath plant pots. I thought, look, there's got to be a better way to look after people. And then, as a guest, we found in our own family's circumstance, it was very difficult once we had 2 kids to be staying in hotels anymore. You're sitting there in the middle of the night, trying to wait for a baby to go to sleep, and it's difficult. I remember watching the AFL Grand Final in a hotel room, thinking, "I'd rather be in a house. This is just terrible. I want to celebrate."
You're like,
yes.
You're like, yes,
yes. So we just thought that there's got to be a different way, and it's really built out from that. And concierge and the butlers, they're all contractors. They're all specialists, so they come in when needed. We don't keep a lot of people on the bench on the Luxico side because the stay comes in, they do a great job as per the show, and they're on to the next one, and we bring the team back. And not everybody wants a huge team. It might be just one person that they need. So, we've had pop stars that they just want to be left alone. They just want to get onto their gaming console.
Yes.
Just everybody out of their hair. And at the other end, we've had royalty there where we've had, security. I've been asked, what type of plants are in? Are they deciduous? So, how much coverage are we going to have at this time of year? So it's a far more involved process. So really, it's about tailoring it, making it bespoke at that top end for the guests. But not all of the homes are at $16,000. We start from about $800 on the Luxico platform and a little bit less. So they're just a really lovely home, both in regional and urban areas.
Well, and I'm glad you've explained that differentiation, because whilst there is the big end of town, like you have these comments like small fish are sweet, and you're still you're going to be prestige regardless with the way that you're marketing, but there still needs to be a spectrum, right? Because luxury to one person is different than the next. Now, I own a number of short stay properties, and I suppose my journey with it is somewhat aligned in my personal experiences. Like when I first went to Europe with my wife, she'd already lived over there. Yeah. She'd been a chef working all around the world, including some of the big restaurants, a short stint at Ledbury of London and other places like that, and Chamonix in France and Edinburgh. And we'll get on to Ledbury in a second because there's a tie to your chef on the show. But we stayed originally, and this was before Airbnb was a thing. Like we're talking 08.
Yes.
I went over there during the GFC, and we stayed with a group called Feels Like Home in Paris.
Okay.
And it was a collection of properties that were all around the inner arrondissements of Paris. And we really felt quite looked after there because we knew they had other properties and they knew what the needs of us would be like. Obviously, we learned some things about what it's like traveling with suitcases, doing walk-ups instead of going up lifts and stuff like that. But you learn all that on the run. Then when we came back home and we renovated a property that we wanted to live in, but we really renovated it with our own taste and vibrance. We had full wall murals. We had very bright, tailored furniture to the house. And then when we outgrew that around the time we were about to have kids, we had sort of a choice to go to this penthouse that we had secured or a property that we'd secured and purchased that had a pool and all that. And it was just bigger than what we needed and we'd already kind of committed to this penthouse. So we went into that and we thought, let's just leave all our furniture in the other one and we'll experiment with whether there's a market for this furnished. So we started with long stay, which was like minimum 3 months, and we ended up with like a series of 6 and 12 month guests, and went all right, but the returns were kind of just probably slightly better, but it took longer to get a tenant. Then we played around with the short stay side, and this was before the platforms were very good for us. And it was just a nightmare, just dealing with the logistics and the middle of the night. You know, where's the remote for such and such, even though there's like 100 instruction manuals and it's basically the only thing you couldn't miss when you walk in the front door. And I just couldn't see how we were going to make a long-term business model out of this unless we kind of aggregated and did other people's bookings and then just didn't get involved in the management, which sort of is how you've ended up doing it with the Luxico business. I feel like that even though there are platforms like Airbnb and Booking.com and all the other ones that go with it, that there's still a need for there to be a specialisation like you have in the upper end. Hearing it from a pro though, like how does it interact when you've got your platform and website and awareness now, especially with an international TV show? How does that sort of sink in with like having other platforms that are multi-billion-dollar companies marketing properties as well?
Well, I think there's, if we've decided to just go for a niche and we think there's a gap there, I mean, the big plays, you think about booking, you just talk about your experiences on the other platforms. You know, you're talking about a company, I think, that's spending about $6 billion on marketing at the moment, right? Wow. And you've got Airbnb, who we love, are doing great work, heavy lifting for category, that also spend a bunch. And so Google AdWords have just gone through the roof with this category. So I think you've got to almost specialise if you're not going to depend on one of them for pure distribution. And that's what we've done. We've gone for the high end. And then we're going to focus on another category going forward, probably to launch in the next 3 months, which is called Stay Longer, which is the 30-night plus category as well. So 2 platforms looking at sort of 2 niches working off the same technology as such.
Yeah. Look, when we had a chat prior to this, one of the spin-out moments that I had when you said Stay Longer was that I literally registered that business name and domain name like before Airbnb came to Australia. Not that I'm worried that you've got it at all. It was just that I was literally about to go down the path of building this business out. I had 3 main options in front of me and I had bandwidth for 2. So the options were to create a niche-specific project marketing and development advisory arm, because I was with a franchise dealer group at the time that whilst there was project experience, it meant nothing to the locals and it actually felt like they were having stuff kind of rammed down their throat a bit. And so that was called Newcastle New Projects. And that was like probably going to always be one of the 3. The second one was Easy Move, which was downsizing owner-occupiers where they asset-rich, cash poor, people approaching or already retired, wanting to go into their next home, whether it's an apartment or a lifestyle village, a mobile home sort of park, which have been jazzed up a lot since then, or even aged care. And just managing that process and wrapping all the support around them that didn't cost up front, having commercial contracts that would then come out of the deal at the end on a slightly higher fee, which had a lot of logistics involved. And the last one was Stay Longer. And I had teed up with a guy who wrote the software for Yes Book It, which then sold to, I think, Domain or Fairfax bought it for like 120 mil and then got bought by another company for like 260. And he was willing to write up basically the new version of this. He wanted to be a JV partner. So I was very excited about the prop tech angle because I was just really starting to dive into that world. But then I heard Airbnb were coming to Australia and I'm just like, man, like I'm okay competing with local competitors that are already trying to cut my head off at every turn. But I don't think I'm up for competing with someone that's come out of the States with a shitload of money and is already doing a good job. I'd rather just be a guest and learn from them. So here you are doing it like some 10 plus years later. But it makes total sense, I think, this sort of 30 days onwards, because there's a lot of people who must have dogs or families.
They're getting divorced. Think about divorces, renovations. There are so many people that ring me up and say, Tom, I need a place quickly. This has happened. My house is flooded. And, Luxico does that, but sort of at the higher end. But there's so many people where, they need something immediately because of a lifestyle change at a lower price point. Yeah. And this is for a pure marketplace. But no, I'm amazed that you had the same domain. And actually, I think some of the feedback that you gave me the other day was interesting. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to use that.
Well, I'm going to say it on air then. If it's not going to kill it, we can always edit it out if not. But what? Look, this might actually gain more attention for it. One of the people that was advising us at the time, I'd already committed to the business name. We were going to make it right anyway. But they said, have you considered the name of your business? I'm like, yeah, Stay Longer. Like, I want them to stay longer. Like, it's so good they want to stay longer, or they've got a longer stay in mind and they've gone, do you realise that's also something that someone that's dealing with erectile dysfunction might have a problem, and they're trying to stay longer? And I'm like, I did not realise, I realise now you're saying it. And so at the time I was probably less kind of algorithm aware, and that it could be actually an advantage to be sort of tripped over. But at the same time, it was brought up to me at the time. We had a bit of a chuckle because we didn't end up going ahead with the business. And What was your reaction when I told you that?
Well, no, I, to be honest, I was flabbergasted. You know, I never thought I'd be selling TV subscriptions. Now I'm going to be selling erectile dysfunction medicine. Like,
hey, it's hard, isn't it?
I know that's interesting. I never would have put those together, but there you go. But maybe there's an interesting marketing angle on it as well.
Yeah.
So
it's not ED, it's premature. Same thing, but yeah, you're going to help people stay longer.
yes.
Either way. So back to the $1 billion playground. Like, you've started your own TV show. There's an 8-year journey involved. Yeah, you were called up to audition and they actually flew you overseas, which is, that's a bit more than a Nigerian prince that's got money to put in your bank account, just send us your details. That's pretty cool. I want to know what it's like working with these billionaires in real life. And, you know, how that plays out in the show. Like, how close is it to that? I've watched episodes of it. What's it like working with this end of the world?
Well, I suppose $1 billion Playground it's 8 episodes. It's a lot of fun, 40 minutes. And obviously the producers like all the drama, you know, of things, you know, that happen very quickly. But, you know, the stays take place quite often. An NDA is signed and, you know, I won't know who the person is that's going in. We have community managers who are in each location who are very discreet. We've organised everything from them. You know, there's always something interesting that I hear about afterwards. Like, I never knew that there was a chaperone service, would you believe, through the airport. So we actually had somebody that had never flown commercial before.
Wow.
Right? And so we had to organise to get them through an airport, because they just had no idea, you know, what to do. So it starts there. It, you know, takes place at the house. Sometimes there's security, sometimes there's not. There isn't. And quite often, probably the most common request is to have chefs, and they might have a butler. So it's generally a smaller group than in $1 billion Playground, but a group that are working together. And quite often the requests can be interesting. They change their mind, you know, really great services about trying to anticipate what people need. In many situations, we're given things that, you know, they want immediately. They want to go here. They want to go there. They change their mind, and that's just part of the business.
So what's an example of a wild request?
Oh, we've brought in grand pianos, you know, exotic animals. All sorts of things. You know, I think one of the funniest one was a guy wanted every odd year of a Grange wine to be brought in, you know, at a moment's notice. So, you know, just having the contacts, the people to talk to, whatever, you know, many different types of requests for boats, for cars, for all that type of thing. And to go to, you know, quite often it's tickets that are just very difficult to get. So it's finding a way to make these things happen quickly.
So you're a pretty networked guy. You're in the Entrepreneurs Organisation network, and, you know, as am I. You've been very heavily involved in, you know, sort of participating in helping that network grow and the up-and-comers in there, and, you know, working closely with the board, and also YPO, where, you know, Schwabby's in as well. Having that level of connections that can act that quickly, like, even if you do have the connections, it's going to cost, right? So, like, how do you position it with people? Like, when they say, like, I want caviar from this part of the world, or I want every odd year of Grange delivered ASAP, like, how does your concierge say to them, that's going to cost you? And, like, you know, what's the level of consent required to end up adding it to the invoice? How does that work?
Well, quite often we're dealing with someone that represents them. So they might be their EA that may be in the States or could be here, and, you know, we just get something that's written, a message. Yeah. We know these people quite often. So, and they've made other interesting requests. So it just, you know, we just make it happen.
You did note before your chefs, right? And I know one of your chefs, George Mirosevic.
Superstar.
He's an incredible guy.
Yep.
So my wife came up as an apprentice just a little before he did. And, you know, I became friends with a lot of his friends. Yes. You know, so there's another couple of fine dining restaurants that have been through the Newcastle Greater Region and Hunter Valley. So, you know, I'm friends with Tony Harrison, who was trained under Robert Molnay's restaurant, another guy called Chris Thornton, who had a beautiful restaurant for a decade and won a lot of awards at Mason, and the list goes on. George is a guy that's sort of being around that scene, innovating, doing pop-ups. He did at a restaurant called the Signal Box right in the middle of where the train line was, which was a huge deal for the train line to be pulled out of Newcastle and turned into light rail. There was just so much opposition about it. And every time I see George, he's been innovating and doing something new. To now see him like basically go from being a renowned chef, trained under Brett Graham at Ledbury of London there for a fair period of time. It was like a thing he had to kind of win, like a scholarship, I think, from memory. And that's like been top 2 restaurants in the world or top 5 restaurants in the world several times. To now be like a celebrity chef, like on the back of this show and have other things going on for him as well. How do you go about choosing him in the first place? I'm trying to get a bit of a context for the talent curation required to even put the ballpark idea of a show together so you can package something up and go with your producer to a network.
I mean, he's got a great profile as his brother has, and has got, he's an really inspiring guy that produces great food. He's got an angle, he's got a style, and he's great in front of the camera as well. So, and they both look, pretty hot on camera as well. They're very good-looking guys. So I don't think it was too difficult, a decision. And, those guys have had, they had great profile even before the show. They've had amazing experiences with top pop stars and all sorts of things. Those are sort of 2 key guys to bring in when you've got somebody really important.
Yeah, it's George and Matt, is it?
George and Matt.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I knew there's a brother involved.
Look, those guys are both perfectionists. They've got 2 very different styles. You should get them on the show.
I might reach out because I think that there's going to be an interesting insight there. I love it when you sort of go around all the perspectives.
Yeah.
And then you're sort of looking at the same thing from everyone's viewpoint.
Yep. Has he cooked for you?
I've eaten his food a lot of times, and he's done functions and stuff like that. Like it's
yeah.
But I also like it. He's the sort of guy that if I'm in Newcastle about once a quarter now for board meetings and just to go and be with the team, and sometimes it's in a monthly period if we're rolling something out new. But if I'm sitting at a cafe there, he'll get out of his car and come up and say hi.
Yes.
And that's a down to earth person who has also come across kind of fame.
Yeah.
Which I think is fabulous. I really like one of the comments in the early show. Like, I can't remember if it was him or Matt. I think it might have been Matt. That's like, I'm the chef and I tend to hook up with the concierge or something like that. It said on the show. And I'm thinking, I bet that's fun for the business owner.
I mean, again, there are things that, you go on this journey, and there's certainly things in the show that I didn't love, but it's reality. It happened, it was, and I think that was one of the sort of slightly daunting things. It's like, yes, you're making a decision about your brand, and just hoping to God that, not too much goes wrong. But so you've got to find that, delicate line. We're very fortunate with the producer and Binge that, we think there's something that actually really, holds the brand up very well, but also is, really fun to watch.
Yeah, look, I found it fascinating that they were so willing to talk about Luxico as a brand. Like I've been on Selling House Australia with Andrew Winter. I think twice on that show and twice on House Hunters International. Now that's the lifestyle network one where like 25 million views an episode or whatever, but like they don't let you have any branding. Like you can't even walk past a sign. Like it is like there must be some hardcore reasons for it. And then they cross-sell it to a lot of other networks. So you can imagine they're trying to avoid conflict of interest and what else that goes with that. But to be part of an original series on a platform like Binge that's having a clear crack in Australasia. Like, they're in with KO. They're sort of part of that sort of Foxtel family. They're a real challenger platform, and they've been producing some of their own great original content. They're not just rebadging stuff. How did you get that over the line with Luxico being mentioned so well?
I mean, I think we started on this journey quite some time ago, so we've been part of it. Involved in the process, and it really is about Luxico. It's about the business. You'll probably notice that there's not too much of us. My wife features a lot more than me.
She's like the Trump character.
I was left on the editing floor. They didn't want to
the cutting room floor.
Middle-aged white guy featured too much. And so I sort of sit, quietly next to Alex as, when she sort of tears people apart a little bit. But, I think it was important. I mean, I suppose we wouldn't be involved unless there was a certain level of projection of the brand. Otherwise, I suppose what's the point in doing it? We had a very clear objective. We're very clear with the producer what we were hoping to achieve by being involved. And hopefully that was transferred to Binge, who have been, they've just been great partners.
Well, what were you hoping to achieve when you started? Because I think we've got an audience here that's very aspirational. Yeah. A lot of our audience are entrepreneurs that are in their own business ventures or leaders in their own right. Others are, wanting to lean into a sort of purpose-led life where they're doing stuff they love and they're being rewarded for it, sort of like the Ikigai concept. So if you've got such a strong theme and objective before you go in, like what was that you had before you started the show?
Well, it was to build brand, but also to build personal brand as well. Mm-hmm. So both my wife, Alex, and I have got two very different roles in the business, and we wanted to get those messages out. So for me, it was about, I want to be that Villa guy, like my Instagram handle, that guy that's going to look at properties, going to meet property managers and getting more properties on platform. And to a certain extent, we've started on that journey, and Luxico probably in the last 6 months, we've added about 250 properties via managers onto our platform. So we now integrate with, businesses in Noosa, businesses in all sorts of locations, in addition to the properties that were legacy properties and that we manage. And so that's been a really clear objective, is actually to build. And the next step is to be an international platform for luxury properties where Australians travel. So we want to be in Ibiza. We want to be in Mykonos, and it's just an opportunity for me to go to kind of interesting places and have cups of tea with interesting people, I suppose. It's like, so I think those are sort of the broader objectives, is to actually position ourselves in category, both domestically and internationally.
Well, I'd say that it does definitely pave the way for that. Yeah. From what I've experienced of the show and watching a few of these observations, I'm around a lot of people that have very strong personal brands that are very closely tied to the business that they're part of. And I think it's been one of the better executed pieces of that. What kind of demand has it created for Luxico since?
So I think the web traffic has increased quite significantly. I'm obsessed with web. I look at it every single day. I reset my analytics all the time. I sort of just see, and so that's been really good. And it was released on the BBC in the UK. So it's been quite interesting to see the numbers sort of go quite up, up dramatically in the UK, and it's coming out on BBC One, which is sort of the main platform there. So I think I think generally it's going to have a long tail. I can't say yes. There've been, we're a high value transaction at an average about $12,000 per booking. Yeah. So it's not like selling $5 vouchers or
Mr. Beast
like
bars.
So it's honestly hasn't been a case of like transaction. But there've been a lot of people that have rung me and say, I saw you on the show, come and have a look at my house, or come and have a chat to us about our business of listing our properties, it's a travel agent that has seen it. But I couldn't say to you today, our sales have increased by X amount. We're definitely up on last year. It's been, I think the whole STR category has been through a really tough period, which we can talk about. So certainly I think we're going definitely in the right direction, which is really positive. But I wouldn't say I can tell you definitively that we've had, $1 million worth of sales out of it,
Yet.
2 months after the release.
Yeah. And look, I jestingly say yet because I agree with you. There's a long tail. There's a long tail to this sort of stuff. And I feel like, it would be about once every 3 to 6 months, I get a text message from someone that I've known from school or one of the thousands of clients that I've interacted with over the years as a property professional saying, saw you on House Hunters International.
Yeah. Would you do it again?
Would I do it again? Yeah, I'd do it again now, knowing what I now know.
Yeah.
But the way that you have done it, I think is a lot more tied to the reason for doing it. at the time, I was really keen to raise awareness for our region. Like I was a real advocate of the Hunter region where I lived, the greater Newcastle area. We'd gone through this rebirth of being a coal and steel town. Yeah. A lot of people turned their nose up at it when they heard about it, yet we have like, dozens of beaches accessible, like 9 or 10 beaches accessible by walking distance from the centre of town. We'd had all this infrastructure money coming our way. Yet people are still looking at Newcastle like it was a place that you would get sent to for witness protection, So I was wanting to evangelise for the area, and I was in projects and development in the time. And then I actually ended up handing the reins. We've got a good-looking character that's a partner in our group of companies, Ryan Houston, and I gave him the last episode of 3. It was very time-consuming. It was like 5.5 days filming straight with a couple of pre- and postings for my segment. Now, I was the main agent on the show, but I wasn't the main subject of the show. The guests, the people are that are coming from the other country and looking at properties and all their story back home and all that.
Yep.
And so I look at that compared to running a whole series and I think, wow. But the thing is, you've got your brand on there and it's going to be on platforms like BBC, BBC One. Like, we're not talking like a couple of thousand views here. We're talking about tens of millions of views over time. And when you do become an international brand, or even because the Brits tend to love Australia, we settled from there, a lot of us. So I think that there is that long tail benefit from it, that name is etched in their minds. It's a very easy name to remember and it's tied to what you're doing there. So I think it provides credibility for what it's worth coming from me anyway.
I hope so. I hope so. But I mean, it's a really topical discussion because we both know people that get asked to go on TV shows.
Yeah.
And you're making that decision about, the time, the energy that's going to go into there, like The Block. That's been obviously great for everybody that's been on
I know
there.
Marty, for example, he's really lent into it.
He has. And I think it's doing great things for his brand and his business brand as well.
I agree, especially now he's starting to find that New York connection with Ryan Serhan and the like.
Yeah. So I think there's certainly it's about the right fit for brand, and I suppose also finding the right producer and platform that are going to be collaborative and allow you to meet the objectives that you've got. Otherwise, you're not going to do it again.
Yes. Yeah, look, on the producer, so like you mentioned they had like some backstory and they'd done other programs you were happy with.
Yeah.
Like, we're both ideas people. We're both visionaries on the profile. Yeah. You've envisaged this TV series. Like that next step of like, I need to get a producer.
Yeah. Well, I'd say there it was a whole lot of stories. So people used to say to me, what have you done today? And I could just reel off a whole lot of stories at a dinner table that people just wouldn't believe. They're like, that's just fucking ridiculous. It's like, how's your day? So they always said, maybe you should think about writing a book. So I went to Ben Davies from Rondi with a whole lot of sort of ideas. Yeah. And certainly what was created, I can't say, is something that he's put together. He put the show together, and we were very lucky that we had an executive producer in Dave Emery that sort of held our hand right through it and took some of the scariness out of it, and gave us a crash course in reality. I mean, I love reality TV. I could watch, Outback Riggers. I watch anything to do, the opal finders, everything.
What about the spanner crab fishermen that go, the Alaskan spanner?
I love all of that. I just love all of that. So, I mean, the whole category I love, but, getting a look inside it is really interesting. And this learning how bloody hard it is to make in Australia is incredible. Like, it's really hard to make TV in Australia.
Why's that?
Well, original TV is higher risk. So our format is what is called an original format. Most formats come from the States or they come from the UK.
Yeah, like a preset playbook, right?
It's a playbook. They've got the data on it. And that's why, obviously, the likes of the big platforms, Netflix and Amazon, they've got all the data where people watch. And it's interesting data. It's like how many people watched all of the episodes, how many people, stopped at, 1 or 2. Yeah. They all almost know what makes, they've got the data to figure out what is going to make a successful show. So you said, look, I don't want to just do my first series. I want to do an original format. Yeah, on an Australian platform for my first time. That's like a complexity factor of like to the power of 3. I mean, my aspiration is we've got $1 billion playground Korea.
Yeah.
Wherever.
That's next, or is it just that's just an example?
I would hope, but it's that's the aspiration that it's on in America. You know, it's something that takes off like some of the other formats.
Yeah.
Which is why it is amazing that Binge Foxtel sort of took a punt on our project.
Do you reckon they're glad they have?
I'd hope so. They seem happy. We don't have the exact numbers, but we'll find out soon whether there's a season 2. We very much hope there is.
Yeah.
But these productions cost millions.
Yeah.
And the promotion of them costs a ton of money.
Do you get the right to take it to another network if they don't want to go again?
Well, I can't speak for the producer, but quite possibly. I mean, I don't know. I can't really speak on the contractual side of things. I'd hope that if they didn't want to, they'd let us do that.
Do some sort of deal like a music artist that's not getting, or an NBA player that's not getting renewed.
Certainly on the journey to get here, we were with another platform, a major platform.
A major streaming
and they dropped
platform.
Us. And I remember the day that we were dropped. It was just heartbreaking, but they dropped a whole bunch of other shows at the same day.
That would have been a low moment.
It was a terrible moment because I think
what was going
I told
through
a
your
bunch
mind?
of people, so it was humiliating, and I think I'd pumped people up, and it was important to me, but it was humiliating, and I thought that's the end of it. But again, it comes back to the quality of the person that you've jumped in bed with, with the producer. He didn't give up. He just got deeper. Negotiated out of that contract, which you still need to do if you're dropped, and went again. And it was Binge that picked it up.
Wow. I imagine you would have still needed to rally yourselves a little bit though.
Yeah, I think for a while I remember taking that call at being a low moment, very low, and thinking, I've had enough of this. This is too hard. But, one door closes, another one opens.
How long was it between getting dropped and getting the new one?
I'd say it was a couple of years to pick ourselves. So it's been a journey, and I do think that we're at the beginning of it, and we'll get better at it as well.
That's exciting.
I hope so.
So on the STRA, and for our listeners and viewers, that's short-term rental accommodation. This is like a very edgy topic for some people, in particular for what we call NIMBYs, not in my backyard. People that are kind of like very happy to be living somewhere great, even a CBD area where there's lots of nightlife and sound. But and if someone else wants to kind of try and hold on to their mortgage by increasing their rental return, then the neighbours are often got a lot to say about it when, a long stay resident can sit there and pump akadaka until 8 p.m. and not really get in trouble at all. But if someone walks in and they trip their suitcase over the front step, then they can basically have the cops or the accommodation manager called on them. It's already sensitive, but then there's been like a lot of taxes thrown into the mix recently. And, particularly where we are now in Melbourne, Australia, in Victoria, in the state of Victoria. But there's others as well. How is that affecting how short-term rental accommodation works for owners at the moment? Yeah,
I mean, the government, and I'll say governments do not want you to own a holiday home, a second home, which makes it difficult.
Why is that?
Well, I think it really relates to issues of affordability for people entering the market. People want first home buyers, which is absolutely fair enough. But the part of the market that we're operating with, that's not first home buyers. These are, $4, $5 to $20+ million homes, which, the people that own those and the people that rent those, it's a totally different category.
Yeah.
So, the government is obviously, and the government of Victoria is probably the worst of the worst, slapping on their 7.5% tax, and they have all sorts of other taxes that relate to exemptions of primary land tax as well. So it's very difficult now to rent out your primary home in Victoria as well. So it's a difficult place to. It's certainly presented some challenges for category.
So the 7.5% tax is on all income on that property and all profit?
Yeah, that's right. So if the stay is under 21 nights and it's not your primary, so if it's a rental, you're paying that. And essentially the homeowner and guest have absorbed that. It's mostly the homeowner in truth. The rents haven't gone up. The homeowner has absorbed that essentially.
So how's that affect, because we're running, this has been such a flowing conversation. Yeah. We're running towards the end of it, but I'm very interested in knowing, how's that affected, what's your outlook for guests that want to travel with a family or have needs or have their own, have pets or, other reasons we're talking about here. How's that affecting the outlook for them if it's being a lot harder to own one of these now?
I think broadly the category is in pretty good shape and some of the regulation has been really good. There's certain standards in states that actually have improved the quality of what's been delivered and the requirement from homeowners, which means that, the homes are presented better and it's got some of the behaviour of guests has improved as well, I think generally. So generally it's okay. I think it's normalised. So you've got sort of extremes.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think there's no doubt that the health of the Victorian category or industry is probably not quite what other states is, but I think it will improve in time.
Yeah, look, it's one of those things where the pendulum often swings.
Yeah.
And it might be political to start with to kind of raise votes, and then it might come back the other way to try and raise revenue. And then it sort of like comes back to, well, hang on, people still kind of need this. And then hopefully there's enough social pressure from it. Because I know as a family when I travel, it's like worlds better to stay in a house.
Absolutely.
Right? Especially multi-generational. If you're going to do that, you got parents as well, or if there's pets, or if you've got some kind of photo shoot or event that you want to run and you really want to have a curated experience. Yeah. I really love what you're doing. I love what you're doing with accessing the tier down in the market too, is stay longer with longer stays and slightly more affordable nights, like, that $200 to $500 category rather than, $800 to $20,000 and above. So look, I think this is one to watch. And the Villa guy, you're a Villa guy on Instagram, right? I think your profile is going to be one to watch because you are a thought leader in this space, Tom. There is no doubt that what you and your wife are doing is groundbreaking. It's Australia's premier platform for a reason. This hasn't been deliberately an ad for you by any means. We're here to look at your mindset and what life's like behind the curtain or under the bonnet, as you say. But I think it would serve a lot of our viewers and listeners well to be tuning into this stuff, because I know for my family, it's been a big deal to be able to keep our properties in the locations that we've loved, be able to go back to them and stay at them when we have connections with people in those areas or our businesses, to be able to keep our furniture there and not have to worry about storing it or selling it or whatever, and to be able to hold more property through market cycles where usually as the interest rates go up, everyone panics and sells. Then you lose stamp duty, you lose selling fees, you pay a bunch of tax, you lose your wealth, you end up working yourself into the ground. I actually feel like it is one of the core elements of being able to be a successful property investor that is not dependent on government handouts or other people for their wealth, and that there is a great lifestyle there for both the traveller, the owner, and also a very viable business model in the middle. So congrats on what you've done there, Tom. And I look forward to talking to you again, maybe on this platform again soon.
Thanks very much, Mark.
Thanks for coming on.
Cheers. Thanks.